Hi folks, last time we had a look at action mappings or Boolean actions. In this video, we're going to focus on axis mappings or float values that you can use to trigger actions within your game. So we're going to look at both vector1 actions, meaning a single float value coming in from SteamVR onto Unreal, or vector2 actions, meaning two float values coming in from SteamVR onto Unreal. All right, so the first step is going to be the same as the action mappings, which is simply to create a new axis mapping. Just gonna change the name here to trigger axis. Stack on there, right? And in the last video, I showed you that you can use different inputs from different controllers to trigger the same action. This time we're gonna use the motion controller abstraction that's built into Unreal. And we're gonna see what that does. All right, so trigger axis, motion controller left, trigger axis. And then we're just gonna regenerate the action manifest since we created a new action. We're gonna also regenerate the controller bindings because we want those action mappings to be generated for every possible controller, which is what this does, motion controller abstraction. And then we're going to reload the action manifest just to make sure that when we do a VR preview that everything's working. And let's just quickly launch the SteamVR bindings dashboard. Show you here to see what has happened. All right, so for the trigger, we have trigger axis as a pull. And if we go to, right, sorry, let's go there. Let's go to config, SteamVR, bindings open with code. And you can see that for each, we have a trigger axis here for the Oculus Touch. For Knuckles, we have a trigger axis there. For SteamVR Manifest, we have the SteamVR Manifest itself. We've got trigger axis. So for every possible controller, or every possible controller that's supported by the plugin, it's gonna generate the the axis mapping that we have here. And that will be the same for action mappings if you have done it here as well. So the main trigger for that is having a motion controller input here, but nothing else. So you can't put anything else in here. If you put another SteamVR controller here, it will just ignore motion controller. So if you want the same action mapping or axis mapping for every possible controller for that action, simply use motion controller. If you want to fine tune it, so you have different buttons triggering a different action or different axis inputs triggering the same action, you have to use specific SteamVR, Oculus, SteamVR Valve controllers and map them properly in here. All right. So now that's out of the way. Let's actually figure out a way to see those values coming into the scene. I guess the simplest way is to just use a text render here. And all right, so I've got trigger. It's just a label basically. Gonna just duplicate that like this. And I'm gonna create a blueprint actor out of this one. I'm gonna name it bp underscore trigger text. All right, put it in content, create blueprint. In the event graph, let me just clean all this up. And first thing is to just make sure that it accepts input. All right, I'm gonna auto receive from player 0 since this is not multiplayer. I'm gonna use trigger axis, which we just created earlier, right? And we're gonna change the text that comes up from here. set text. All right, set text. So that. All right, so that should be it. So every time the trigger is pressed, the access value coming in from SteamVR here goes to here and then just updates the text. Do a VR preview here. Sorry, let me just put that across in there. Click inside. Just gonna move the headset like that so I don't have to put it on. And I'm gonna press the trigger in the left controller so you can see the access values get updated from 0 to 1 as I press the trigger. Alrighty, so that's how you would do an access mapping or a vector 1. Let's now do the vector 2. Okay. Okay, engine input. And similar to the vector 1, we're just going to create a, what are we going to use? So let's use a thumbstick. I'm going to use thumbstick axis underscore x. So this will be the x-axis, which is the first one. So you have to do underscore x. That's one of the conditions. So underscore x is the placeholder for the x-axis if we're going to do a vector 2. And the second condition is to do motion controller left thumbstick x is to have a motion controller, whether it's the abstracted one from Unreal or the various specific inputs that come in with the plugin, and has to have the X in there. So the ones that have X at the end. And then we're going to do another one, which is basically thumbstick axis underscore Y. So we should have underscore X and then underscore Y, and these have to match. All right, so we've got X, and then we're going to put motion controller left thumbstick Y. So X and Y underscore X underscore Y in there. And why do we have to do this? It's simply because this part of the UI of Unreal Engine doesn't actually support vector 2 actions. So this is a way for the plugin to determine if you wanted the vector 2 action, you have to set it up this way. You've got to have the same action name, but underscore X and underscore Y at the end. And they have to match the motion controller X and Y axis here so that SteamVR will then treat it as a vector 2 action. And we'll see in a while how it looks like. All right. So we're going to regenerate the action manifest, regenerate the controller bindings. We're going to reload the action manifest, launch the dashboard, and see what happened. All right, so we use the thumbstick, right? So in the thumbstick here, you could see that it's being used as a joystick. And here's the action or the axis mapping that we just created. It's called thumbstick axis. Notice that you don't have underscore X underscore Y because it automatically interprets that as a vector 2 action. And the way it actually looks, open it. In here, I'm going to use knuckles. Is joystick. That's actually how it looks like in there. And it's an vector 2 axis mapping. So that's all done for you in the backend if you're using the SteamVRInput plugin. All right, so let's just modify this a bit so that we could actually see those X and Y axes that we just created. And let's create one more of these, which is BP underscore x text. And I'm gonna create another one, vp underscore y text. And let's do the x. And obviously it's not gonna be the trigger axis, it's gonna be the x, thumbstick axis x. Here, just plug that in there, save that in, and do this, change the same thing, thumbstick y, radio, text, compile, save. All right, so let's just put this in the scene here. What it should look like. We're gonna do a VR preview. Just have a look. Sorry, let me just put that out there. Let's move the headset a little bit. All right, so I'm gonna try to press the trigger. I'm gonna click inside just to make sure the input is being accepted. I'm just gonna click here and just do the move the thumbstick around, and yeah, there you go. So we have we've looked at the vector ones, which is a single float value coming in from SteamVR, and the vector2, which is two float values coming in from SteamVR. Alrighty, so that's it for this video. On the next one, we're going to look at some fun stuff, which is the animation. All right, folks, so see you next time.